Welcome back to Bullyball, a San Francisco 49er podcast. We have another special guest with us here today. And it's been kind of a coincidence. We reach out to a ton of prospects during the pre-draft process, and we've had two interviews so far. This is our third. All three players from the same conference, and all three Division II players with great stories. So joining me today is Trevor Nowaske from Saginaw Valley State. He's a linebacker, and his name's been growing and buzzing in the draft community lately. So how's it going today, Trevor?
Good.
We're excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So, playing in the GLIAC first team all conference this year. But, talk to us a little bit about your origin story. Coming out of high school, what was your recruiting like, and what led you to choosing Saginaw Valley State?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I wasn't super heavily recruited out of high school. A lot of the GLIAC schools were recruiting me, mainly Division II schools. At the time, I was getting recruited for defensive end for a lot of schools. So most of the schools were looking at me, with my frame and whatnot. And Saginaw was one of the only ones that recruited me at linebacker. So at that point, I really liked that they believed in me at that spot, and I had a good relationship with the coaching staff at the time, and that's kind of how I ended up at Saginaw.
Awesome. And so in high school, did you play linebacker? And then,
Yeah. Yep.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
No. Yep.
So, playing in the GLIAC, do you feel the competition level was similar to what you would go on to see at the Tropical Bowl? Because, having these other fellow GLIAC players on, it seems like you guys kind of are the top conference in Division II, I would say. So
Absolutely.
how was that shift in competition level?
Yeah. So like you said, you kind of hit it on the nail. Going into the Tropical Bowl, you kind of have that in the back of your head coming from Division II. What's the competition like? What's the level of play going to be like? That was my biggest, not worry, but that was my biggest question was the level of competition going to be that much of a step up? And I didn't really feel like that. I felt very prepared going into the Tropical Bowl. Maybe the size in terms of the, O lineman, I would say would be the biggest difference. But in terms of, skill level, I would say it's very similar. Like you said, I think the GLIAC, I'm pretty confident to say it's the hardest Division II conference in the country. In Michigan, we don't have FCS football. So, if we did, it would definitely probably be the GLIAC in that terms. So yeah, when I went to the Tropical Bowl, I felt like I stacked up very well against those guys, and I felt like I was very prepared due to the level of competition I play.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So just a little bit of stats and stuff for the people watching. So this past year, first team all GLIAC with 98 tackles, 1 sack, 9.5 tackles for loss, and 4 interceptions. And then in the year previous, you had 4.5 sacks and an interception and 10 pass breakups between the 2 years. So, a ton of ball production for a linebacker. What leads to that for you?
Yeah, I felt like, overall, I had people around me that made my job a lot easier, especially this year. Our defensive line was very good. As well as our back seven, our defense was just very solid this year and last year as well. When you have people around you that are that much better as well, it just makes your job a lot easier. So, like I can't take all the credit. It's definitely the guys up front, making those gaps a lot easier to shoot, and the guys behind me making my job a lot easier when they're in coverage and with the sacks and whatnot and the interceptions. So
Love to hear it. I believe you guys went, was it 7-3 this past
8-3,
year?
but yep.
8-3, and you guys didn't make the playoffs, though, correct?
Nope.
How does that work? An 8-3 team not making the playoffs?
Yeah, so kind of going back to what we were saying, so it was Ferris State, Grand Valley, and Davenport this year that made the playoffs. All very good teams. When you have 3 or 4 good teams, they're just not how the bidding works. I'm not entirely sure. It goes by region. And then when it came to the points and the records and whatnot, we just were right there, right at the bottom, but we ended up not making it. And, when you've got Ferris State, who's back-to-back national champs, Grand Valley, who was undefeated, in the regular season, and then Davenport, who only had 2 losses. It's tough when you have that many good teams in one conference. I felt like we should have made it, and if we did, I felt like we would have made a run. But it is what it is.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. And I believe you guys barely lost to Ferris State, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was Ferris and Davenport were down to the wire. I mean, in Ferris State, I think it was 4th and inches on the goal line with like a minute left, and they ended up scoring. And then Davenport, same deal. I think we lost by 4 or 5. So both games we should have easily, came out with the W. But they're good teams, and they got it done. So.
Yeah, and that's crazy. And that just goes to speak about, what we've been talking about. So, speaking on that a little more, it seems that, with the transfer portal and everything going on, that you are seeing a ton of like FCS, FBS guys go down to the Division II level. And this year it's been like really obvious because, we're seeing Division II guys at the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, Combine, kind of some things you don't really see
Yeah.
often. Do you see the Division II level continuing to grow and, where it becomes more commonplace that Division II players are making the leap to the NFL due to that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, kind of like what you said. When I first got into college and the transfer portal wasn't as prevalent, we'd get a handful of, Division I guys probably once every 1 or 2 years. And now, like you said, we're getting multiple Division I, Big Ten people coming into the conference, and it's very prevalent now with just how easy the transfer portal is and how many people are going in it. There's not as many places to go when so many people are going, so they're going to have to go down a division. So yeah, absolutely. I think that in the upcoming years you'll definitely see more of this, just due to the lack of places to go in Division I, and then they're going to have to find a place to play, and they'll end up playing at the most competitive level at Division II. So.
And do you see, I know it's early stages of this, but have you seen like more money being poured into Division II football? Like we see these crazy facilities and stuff in the Division I. Do you see it kind of going that way?
I think so. Maybe in the future, yeah. I think it's a little, like you said, maybe a little too early to tell right now. But maybe as it gets more prevalent and more, big time names, if they end up going to smaller schools, then you never know. Yeah, with all the money and NIL and stuff like that, there's money to be thrown around. So I don't doubt it.
Yeah, definitely. And so, we had Caleb Murphy and Jake Witt on our channel, also GLAC guys. And, they kind of talked about some things that I never really thought of at the Division II level, kind of like how you guys don't get a meal plan like these guys at the FBS level. And, so what are some things for you that you've seen that could make it harder for Division II players, maybe even yourself, to make it to the NFL that these Division I guys do have?
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably start with that. I would say nutrition is a big one. At these bigger schools, you've got athlete only cafeterias, and you don't have to worry about that stuff. And there's a lot of kids at Division II level who, like you said, they don't have meal plans. And when you're on your own for nutrition and whatnot, that's a huge aspect of, keeping your body right in terms of injury prevention, trying to gain, especially as a younger person, trying to gain that strength and muscle to trying to, crack a starting spot. I would say that's number one. And then even when it comes to academics, we just don't have the resources, the tutors, the 24/7 support. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. They do what they can. But at the end of the day, we just don't have the resources that those big time schools have. So, there's a lot on your own, which I give a big shout out to the guys who are at the smaller schools, because it's all on you with a lot of stuff in terms of that time management, in terms of making sure you're eating right. At the bigger schools, they're trying to do everything they can to do that for you. So I would say those are probably the biggest 2 things.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think about because, an NFL team could possibly see that as a positive as well for you guys, because Jake Witt had mentioned it. He said, we don't have those things. So think about when you do give us those things.
Yeah.
If we're already a player performing at a high level, we could maybe make that even extra step
Hmm.
that those guys already had. So I think that's pretty awesome for you guys.
Yeah.
And it really hit home. I was watching, I believe it was NFL Network or something, and they were at Georgia's pro day, and they have like a steak and lobster
Yep.
part of their cafeteria or something. I was like, man, what the
That's
hell's going
crazy.
on here? But yeah, so yeah, speaking on the Tropical Bowl, how was your experience there? And it seems like one of the newer bowl games, but we've seen players come out of these newer bowl games, and they are getting a lot of talent going to these games. So how was that?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I had a great experience, like you said. It was definitely more Division One FBS players, so that was really cool to experience that. I think it was great in terms of my confidence level to kind of realize, I belong. Because, like I said earlier, in the back of your head, you're always thinking, maybe it's just Division Two, like, but then you get there and you're still doing the same stuff, and you're like, okay, I can do this. So yeah, I had a great experience. Met some really cool guys. We played at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. That was pretty cool. Coming from Division Two, you never play in those big stadiums. So that was a cool experience. The coaches were very nice, very informative. Had some good coaching points while I was there. So overall, I had a great experience.
How was the scouting and stuff there? Were there tons of scouts? Were you guys having like meetings and stuff, kind of like the Senior Bowl and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. So the scouting was very good. The first night we were there, you kind of went to a conference room, and it was kind of like, I guess it'd be like a little draft-esque kind of experience where you're just kind of sitting around, and if a scout wanted to talk to you, they would call you. So, you could sit there for, I think I sat there before for probably 2 hours before I got my first call, and you're just kind of waiting around, and you'd see someone else walk up, and you're like, oh, dang, I wish, hopefully I get that soon. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. That was my first time interacting with scouts. So it was really cool. Got a good kind of feel for how it would be throughout the process, and yeah, it went well.
That's awesome. So, speaking on that, you then go on to your pro day, and you put up some crazy numbers. And I believe I saw a report that over half of the NFL teams had a representative there.
Yeah,
Um, and the numbers you put up: 6, 2.5, 237, 25 bench reps, 34.5-inch vert, 10.02 broad jump, 4.540 with a 1.59 10-yard split. So you were screaming. Uh, 4.2 short shuttle and 6.753 cone drill. So, you go crazy at your pro day. You have all of these scouts or agents, whoever was there.
yeah.
Um, what was the difference from that Tropical Bowl experience with, waiting so long to talk to these scouts and stuff to then this pro day where everyone shows up and you're the main guy at the show?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess kind of like what you just said, it would just be all eyes are on you, So when you're at the Tropical Bowl, you're waiting in line and whatnot for one-on-ones and stuff, and maybe even scouts aren't watching you. Maybe they've got a sheet, and oh, I'm only looking at this guy today. But when you put up numbers like that, they can't not watch you. You know what I mean? So obviously, like you said, it's been picking up a lot lately. Beforehand, I definitely wasn't getting the recognition I thought I deserved, and then I kind of showed that through my pro day, and it went very well, like you said. I feel like I kind of thrive under that pressure. I kind of knew what I was going to do. Everyone, has been asking me like, did you know you were going to run that or jump that or whatnot? And I had been training obviously for 2 months before that, so yeah, I knew what I was going to do. And it's really comes down to just trusting your training and going out there and performing. So I felt like I did what I needed to do, and since then it's been good.
That's awesome. And I think, let me see, I have your RAS score here that I want to throw up on the screen.
Okay.
Here it is, a 9.85. 10s max out on the scale. So you're athletically top of the top in the NFL draft. But yeah, I believe I read you were a track runner in high school. Did that help
Yep.
you with the 40?
Yeah, I feel like it did. It's one of those interesting things. You think you know how to run a 40 until you kind of get to that training. I thought I knew how to, getting my stance. And then, we're there week one, and he's teaching us the stance that we should be using. And I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing. So I definitely think in terms of my top end speed, I think track helped. But, you kind of start from square one when it comes to that training. It's really, like I said, it's all about your steps and your start and, head down, all this interesting stuff that you don't even realize could take a tenth off your time. So I think overall track helped, but I definitely think my training would have to take most of the credit.
Yeah, and it's crazy you say that because you guys go out there and run, and it looks easy when you see all of you players doing it, but it's definitely not easy like that.
Yeah.
Um, so where do NFL teams see you playing in the NFL? Watching your highlights and stuff, it looked like you were playing kind of an outside linebacker,
Yeah.
but also you did play some inside. So what did you play most of your college career, and what did they expect you to play?
Yeah. So most of my career, like you said, I was more outside boundary linebacker, just kind of setting the edge. Our defense was a little different than traditional 4-3s. It was more like a wide 4-3 where I'm a couple yards off the ball. I'm always setting the edge, kind of like a stand-up end, but also dropping back in coverage and whatnot. So I go to the Lions local pro day on Tuesday, and I'm slotted as an inside linebacker. So obviously that's where they see me playing. But I've also talked to other teams, and they could see me playing outside as well. Obviously, I think it's just with their scheme where they see me fit best. So we'll see.
Nice. And what would you say you excel most at as a linebacker? Would you say maybe, between the tackles, run defense, playing in space, in coverage, and then also what do you think you can improve upon the most?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I probably just sideline to sideline. I think with my speed, I make up for a lot of things. Like I said, I played boundary linebacker, and you can see on my tape a lot of times me coming from the boundary to the field, making plays. So, a lot of people when they talk about me online, they're talking about short area quickness. I think sometimes that they're giving me a little knock. I think I got a little more than that. I think I do well in coverage, and the stats don't lie. I think 7 pass breakups this year and 4 interceptions. So I think I also excel in the pass coverage as well. One thing I think I could improve on, possibly my pass rush. We didn't get a lot of experience in our defense over my 4 years there at pass rush. I'm always improving on that every day after practice. This year I'm working with the D-line to try to improve my game on that. So I would say that's one area where I could improve.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, and I watching your highlights, you do see yourself flying, sideline to sideline. So I don't see what they were seeing at all. Um, who are some NFL linebackers? It could be current, could be, from the past
Yeah.
that you try to model your game after.
Absolutely. So one in particular, he actually played in the GLIAC. His name's Anthony Pittman. He plays for the Lions. And one, I kind of model my game after him because he's got a pretty similar story in terms of, he came from our conference, kind of not heavily recruited. No one really believed in him. And he's been in the league for 4 or 5 years now. And with the Lions, they kind of do very similar things that we kind of did in our defense, where he's kind of that stand-up jack type player where he's setting the edge, but they'll also drop him back and whatnot. And he's also just a menace on special teams. So in terms of where I think I could kind of excel in the league, I think something like that, where, I this year, as I got older, they didn't put me on special teams as much. I was always begging my coaches to get me on kickoff and whatnot. But I think something like that, where I'm kind of that stand-up, but also drop back, but just a special team ace. I would say someone like that would who I try to model my game after.
Yeah, and for people that don't really know him, I think another player that fills that same kind of role is kind of what Micah Parsons does, right? He's at the top of the NFL level,
Yeah.
but he plays on the edge, and then against certain teams, you'll see him playing inside linebacker. So kind of similar role there. Which player or players in the NFL do you want to go against the most? Which offensive players? It could be an O lineman, running back, quarterback. Who are the guys you just want to face?
That's a good question. In terms of I would say probably like running back wise, maybe just a weird one to say right here, but like a Tony Pollard. We were talking the other day at our training, and we were doing one-on-ones, and we were doing like option routes, and people were being running backs, and we were kind of talking like, what's the craziest running back you went against? And one of the guys I trained with, he plays for the Bears, and he was saying Tony Pollard was just so shifty. So if I was, we were doing it, and he's playing wide receiver, and he's trying to break us off, and I felt like he was doing well. So if he's doing well, and he's telling me Tony Pollard's just breaking him off, then I would love to be just eye opened and see how just crazy that is, at that next level.
I like that answer. That's a good, unique answer.
Yeah.
And then, my last formal question, have you been contacted by the 49ers? And, have any scouts or anybody given you a range on where you could be expected to go?
Yeah. So with the 49ers, that is one team I have not been in contact with. I do not believe they were at my pro day. So obviously, just sometimes that's how it works. If they're not at the pro day, and they're not recruiting, Division II or where I'm at, then it is what it is. I feel like when I've talked to scouts and I've talked to my agent, we're definitely looking at probably a priority free agent mini camp invite as of right now. Like I've said, it's been picking up lately. So the opportunities, we'll see. People say that, and then who knows what happens. If you would have told me, obviously the goal coming from a Division II level was just to get a mini camp invite. But now we're looking at possibly getting signed as a undrafted free agent. So we'll see. It's been a great ride. Like I said, if you would have told me a month ago I'd be in this position, I would have been like, you're crazy. But obviously with my pro day and just kind of how I've checked the boxes in terms of the Tropical Bowl and my pro day, I feel like I've put up a pretty good resume for a small school guy, and we'll see what happens. I've been enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to what happens.
Yeah, and all it takes is a chance. We had last year we had Jason Poe on our channel. He played at Lenore Rhine, and then he transferred up to FCS for a year. 49ers signed him as an undrafted free agent. He got his chance. He almost made the 53, but he got cut at final cuts, got brought back on the practice squad, and now he signed a second contract with the team. So,
Nice.
all you really need is that one chance,
Yep.
and you can make the most of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, thanks for coming on. You brought some great insights. I love seeing you guys from Division II and the GLIAC make it. You got a fan from me and my co-host forever. We love having you guys on the channel, and we appreciate you.
Yep.
You got any final words for the fans?
Go watch my highlights. Go watch my pro day. Spread the word. I'm always trying to, get my name out there. So I appreciate you having me, and thanks for taking the time. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll drop your links to your highlights and stuff in the comments of this.
Sounds good.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Send it back.